Hey, how's it going, everybody? I'm a bit delayed this week, I'm not gonna lie. We had a storm that sent me back to the ages of dial-up, unfortunately. But thankfully things are mostly okay now, and considering we're in the final few months of the Nintendo Switch, I wanted to go back and cover something really important, for not only the system itself, but for myself as well. Nintendo Switch 2 has been officially, finally, announced. We know that there's a new Mario Kart game, backwards compatibility for Switch 1 games, bar a few, and that we've got a Nintendo Direct coming in April. So with Nintendo's next generation in sight, let's take a look back at a game that not only was the swan song for the Wii U era, but more importantly, the game that launched and defined this generation of Nintendo. A game that brought Nintendo from the unfortunate lows of the Wii U era to the soaring heights of the Nintendo Switch. A game that in 2017 became my favourite game of all time. With all that said, welcome back to RetroVival, and this is The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild. In 2014, Nintendo was already 2 years into the life cycle of the Wii U, and let's just say things could have been better. Nintendo had expected the console to reportedly sell around 9 million units in the first year, but they reduced that sales expectation to 2.8 after launch. The Wii U needed a win, and despite Nintendo putting out some absolutely fantastic games, I cannot understate how many good games this console had despite it not being the biggest one Nintendo have ever done. They had Super Mario 3D World, Mario Kart 8, and Wind Waker HD. The console's branding didn't help it, with a lot of people out of the gaming loop genuinely believing it was just an insanely overpriced accessory for the Wii. The system wasn't selling the way Nintendo hoped it would, but Nintendo had one silver bullet in their chamber that they still needed to fire. I say one because this was around the time where they forgot Metroid existed. During E3 2014, Nintendo revealed their next-gen Legend of Zelda game. A trailer showing an anime-looking Link encountering a creature we'd go on to know as a Guardian. The visuals of this trailer were stunning, and a bit more cinematic in terms of what was happening, with the Guardian itself being very aggressive, destroying a platform, and it just seemed like much more of a threat physically than what we'd eventually encounter in-game. The trailer set the date of 2015, and we'd eventually go on to get our first gameplay trailer by the end of 2014, with Mr. Aonuma sitting down with Mr. Miyamoto giving a gameplay demo during the 2014 Game Awards. The game looked incredible, and while I wasn't really in the Nintendo sphere much at the time, I remember this presentation making me incredibly excited for the game after seeing the gameplay. That E3 trailer and this presentation made me buy a Wii U. They explained how you could travel wherever you wanted, whenever you wanted, the different mechanics of the game and how detailed the world would be, with them pointing out the ability to find apples growing from trees that you could pick and eat. The HUD would go on to be starkly different on release, and even the visuals looked quite a bit different from what we ended up getting too. The game would go on to be delayed until 2017, with it being simultaneously released on both Wii U and the newly revealed Nintendo Switch on March 3rd, 2017. The Switch reveal trailer was something else. The hype for this system alone was incredible, but then seeing that Breath of the Wild would be releasing on it alongside a new 3D Mario later that year set excitement through the bloody roof. I immediately got my pre-order in for the Switch and Breath of the Wild, and started paying it off every few weeks in my local GameStop. And then the wait truly began. The Nintendo community really came together to hype up this system and build excitement for themselves and others. With the likes of Happy Console Gamers reactions and topical videos talking about the system, Zelda and more, Kirby GCN 17's Nintendo New York reaction videos, Alex CND's videos camping outside Nintendo New York to be the first in line to buy a Switch, along with his direct reactions too. And last but not least, the late and forever missed Edeka's reactions to directs and announcements, fueling the hype even more. Joy-Con boys forever. Breath of the Wild released to rave reviews. At its highest, people loved the openness of the game and the feeling of discovery. The only real negatives I remember personally were the weapon degradation system, and to be perfectly honest, I've never been too keen on that myself in any game, so I related to that bit a bit. The other was the way the story was structured, with some people preferring the more linear Zelda experience to Breath of the Wild's find it yourself approach. When March 3rd arrived, I was absolutely dying with the flu. I travelled to my local GameStop and they had it all bagged and ready to go for everyone, with our games and accessories all packaged for us to collect. I got home, unpacked everything, set it up and let my Joy-Cons charge for a bit. And after a bit of breakfast and a second cup of tea in hand, it was finally time to start the Switch's first and possibly greatest adventure. It was a gaming experience that I had never experienced before, and I don't think I ever will get that experience again. It was released during a bit of a down period for me. I was having no luck getting a job at the time, and things were just a bit crappy in general around that time. So the Switch and Zelda were really the one thing I was really excited for that year. So while having the flu at the time meant I felt like utter crap, it also meant that I had a fantastic reason to just stay in and get immersed in Breath of the Wild's Hyrule for over a week straight, and just take my mind off of everything. And it worked. There's moments in gaming that stick with you, ones that you'll always remember and that set the standard for what's to come. The beginning of Breath of the Wild is one of those moments. Those first few steps out of the Shrine of Resurrection, with Link running to the edge of the cliff for a better view as the camera pans out and the incredible soundtrack plays. The game shows you its scope immediately, because you know straight away that if you want to, you can climb that mountain. You can go to that foreboding castle. If you see it, you can probably get there. Wherever I wanted to go, whatever I wanted to do, it was entirely up to me. It's a moment other games have come close to, but nothing has hit for much as me as this game did. Skyrim, Elden Ring and Tears of the Kingdom are the honourable mentions I'd give for games that have come close to giving me that feeling. But Breath of the Wild was just a special moment for me.
Open your eyes.
The game opens simply with a black screen, with small white text slowly fading in and out. Nintendo presents The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild. It was such a simple but effective choice. It felt like it built anticipation even more. And then we hear Zelda telling us to wake up. Link awakes in the Shrine of Resurrection, which is sat upon the Great Plateau, a giant landmass sat high above Hyrule. So high in fact that Link simply couldn't just climb or jump down. Zelda helps him escape, get some gear, and acquire a useful item called the Sheikah Slate, which Link will use to navigate the world of Hyrule in many different ways. He then meets a large hooded man, who tells him that the Great Plateau is, according to legend, the birthplace of the entire kingdom of Hyrule, and then tells him of the Temple of Time, a temple in the distance where 100 years ago was the site of many sacred ceremonies, but has fallen to ruin in the years since. You'll explore the surrounding area and maybe even try your hand at combat and explore the temple, but Zelda will eventually point you in a direction, and when you get there and place the Sheikah Slate into the pedestal, you'll be launched high into the sky on the platform you're standing on, and more of these towers will be shown emerging throughout the world. These towers are not only fast travel locations, but also reveal sections of the map for the regions they cover. They'll also act as a handy way for you to get your bearings and spot locations in the distance that you want to travel to. Whether it's old ruins, a shrine, another tower, or an enemy camp, you'll be able to use your Sheikah Slate to mark the locations to go find. This mechanic is very much out of the Ubisoft Assassin's Creed and Far Cry playbook. It's one that I'm admittedly very lukewarm on these days, but I do think it's done very well in Breath of the Wild. When you climb the tower and activate the pedestal, you see the surrounding area, but you don't get given a bunch of objectives or checklists to clear. You simply see that section of the map now on your map, but it's up to you to look around, to explore and discover things. Zelda speaks to you again and lets you know that you have been asleep for the past 100 years. She warns you of the beast at Hyrule Castle regaining its full power, and that Link needs to hurry before it's too late. When you make your way down the tower, the hooded man gives you a shout and he glides into view on a paraglider. He teaches Link of Calamity Ganon, how 100 years ago it brought the kingdom of Hyrule to ruin, how it destroyed everything in its path, and that many innocent lives were lost in the process, and how for the past century, Hyrule Castle has been just barely able to contain it. But it's building power, and eventually will run rampant again, spreading its blight upon the land once more. He agrees to give you his paraglider to get off the Great Plateau if you get him a treasure from a nearby shrine. You'll complete the shrine and he'll alter the deal, telling you that there's actually 3 more that you need to do. After that, you'll acquire the paraglider and learn that this man is actually King Rhoam, the long deceased father of Zelda. He'll send you on your way, and then it's time to explore Hyrule. leaping off the Great Plateau for the very first time and truly beginning your adventure. An adventure where your end goal is to defeat Calamity Ganon, and not only save Princess Zelda, but the entire kingdom of Hyrule. You'll travel all around the world, meeting the sea people or mermaid like Zora in their beautiful domain, a town/castle-like structure built along a river. It's visually one of the coolest locations in the entire game in my opinion. And here, along with each of the other main towns in the game, you'll find an inn if you need to take a rest, along with a store to purchase arrows, food and crafting materials. The hulking Gorons in their village on Death Mountain, a dangerous volcano not only full of dangerous obstacles and enemies to encounter, but where the heat will gradually cut down your health and burn your weapons without the proper equipment. The bird-like and proud Rito in their towering village on Lake Totori, a cold region that will require you to wrap up warmly or eat some hot food in order to stop yourself from freezing to death. And finally the Gerudo, in their female-only town on the Gerudo Desert, that will see you battling the harsh heat and threats of the desert too, along with Link needing some specific gear to sneak his way in. All 4 of these regions will have you meeting new characters that will help you on your journey, like Teba of the Rito, Riju of the Gerudo, Yonobu of the Gorons, and of course Sidon of the Zora. Sidon became very popular after this game came out. You'll meet Impa, Pura, and Robbie, who'll teach you about what's happened in the world, the Sheikah and their technology. And through their stories and by recovering Link's memories too, you'll remember Princess Zelda and the 4 late champions of Hyrule, and the towering divine beasts they controlled back during the Calamity. Zelda had the weight of the world on her shoulders, but she needed to push herself more and more to reach her true potential to stand a chance against Calamity Ganon. There's Revali, the proud and arrogant Rito, who had quite a bit of resentment towards Link in the past, because of Link's higher position in the group. Revali was a skilled archer, and a valued member of the champions despite his attitude. There's Urbosa, the fierce and towering Gerudo, who wields a sword and shield and can summon lightning at the snap of her fingers. Despite her intimidating stature, she was actually a friendly and empathetic character, who already knows Zelda well and was very close with her mother. We've got Daruk, the brave, proud and friendly Goron, who wields a giant stone sword. Daruk's the man. He's got everyone's back and just wants to protect the people. Himself and Link become buddies, with Daruk definitely being the extrovert of the two. He's also incredibly afraid of dogs. And finally we've got the introverted and courageous Mipha of the Zora, who uses a trident in battle. Where Urbosa had her close connection with Zelda, Mipha and Link had their own history too, with more and more of their relationship being revealed through the various cutscenes and memories in the game. She's definitely one of the most heartbreaking stories you'll be told throughout your time in Hyrule. As I said before, the 4 champions controlled the divine beasts back during the Calamity, and all lost their lives fighting to protect Hyrule and aid Zelda and Link in the war. Now, 100 years later, it is up to you to make your way into each of the divine beasts, all with the help of your new allies, who are descendants or families of your old friends. Retake control of the divine beasts and use them to fight against the Calamity. To do this, you'll have to solve some puzzles and fight the Blight Ganons within. Each of these extensions of Ganon take on the traits of the champions, and by defeating them and freeing the divine beasts, the souls of our old friends can be laid to rest. The world of Hyrule is vast and diverse, from the boiling and treacherous cliffs and lava pools of Death Mountain to the freezing woodlands and hills of Tabantha Frontier, the harsh and barren Gerudo Desert, and the serenity and calm of Zora's domain. Hyrule has so much to see and discover. Places like Kakariko Village and Hateno Village will feel like home, and safe havens from the dangers of the outside world. Places to shop, customize and acquire new armor, and do quests for the local people. Shrines scattered throughout the world will give you plenty of mini dungeons to explore, and while maybe they don't reach the acclaim of previous dungeons in the series, they most certainly give you plenty to do in order to keep you busy while you attempt to build Link's strength to face Ganon, with you tackling challenges of the mind and the sword, solving different puzzles and fighting smaller guardians to prove yourself worthy of the shrine's rewards. The towers I previously mentioned will give you fantastic views that will help you scout your next journey. A journey that will take you through all of the elements Hyrule has to offer, from the freezing cold to the melting heat. When there's thunder and lightning, you should steer clear of metal weapons and armor. And when you're halfway up a cliff face and it starts to rain, well, you're going to have a very tough time getting further up, with Link gradually losing not only his stamina, but his grip on the rock's now slippery surface. The land will be littered with creatures to encounter. Deer, boars, horses, and bears can all be found roaming in the wilderness, with smaller creatures like rabbits and squirrels scurrying around as well. The rivers, lakes, and sea will be home to a variety of fish that you can catch by using your bow or less ethical methods. Remote bombs come in very handy, let me tell you. And all around you, you will see a variety of birds, from storks to peacocks, ducks, and more. It's details like this that truly make the world feel lived in. One of my favourites is when it starts raining and you're near a flock of sheep. You'll see them making their way to the nearest tree to take shelter. Each region of the game has its own atmosphere to them, with one particularly nice one being the Korok village. I really think the music and lighting adds so much to the mystique of it all. When this is all done, and you've leveled up Link's abilities by completing the shrines throughout the map, and collecting Hestu's seeds to upgrade your inventory, you'll finally be able to go take on Ganon. Exploring Hyrule Castle itself is one of my favourite parts of the game. It's such an interesting area to explore, and you'll find hidden paths all around, along with journals that provide even more backstory on characters like Zelda and just Hyrule in general. You'll see familiar locations from previous games like the Throne Room and more, and when you finally scale to the top, you'll come face to face with Calamity Ganon. How you've handled things up to that point determines how the fight goes. If you've done all of the Divine Beasts, you're going into this fight with a significant advantage, with the Divine Beasts blasting Ganon with all their power, weakening him in the process. But if you ran from the Great Plateau straight here, well, best of luck. It's going to be a lot tougher. But hey, you can actually do that, which is one of the coolest aspects of this game. The final boss is available to fight at all times. When the game finally ended, it was one of those moments where I was praying for an epilogue. I was really hoping we'd get some post-game stuff, but we unfortunately didn't. You do get a cool cutscene of Link and Zelda setting out to rebuild Hyrule, but then that's that. We'd go on to get the Champions DLC, which would give us the Master Sword Trials, a challenge that would see you upgrade the Master Sword if you were able to complete it all. And the Champions Ballad, a story that takes place during the game that gives more background to the Champions, Zelda, and Link's relationships. It's honestly a great addition to the game, and it adds a whole new boss fight to the game too, so I highly recommend it. During your adventure, you're going to be equipped with 3 items: a melee weapon, a shield, and a bow, all of which are necessary to survive in Hyrule. The combat is straightforward, but there's still a bit of a learning curve when getting used to stuff like dodging and parrying. Once you get parrying down, it's one of the most satisfying feelings in the game. Along with that, you can also do a backflip backwards and leap back in slow motion for a hack and slash sequence. Jumping off your horse or a height and aiming your bow in slow-mo never gets old either. On top of your weapons, you also have the abilities you'll unlock using your Sheikah Slate. You can pause objects with stasis and then build up momentum by hitting them over and over again until it's released, sending them flying in the process. You can use magnetism to move heavy objects like opening giant doors, creating platforms, or just dropping something on a bokoblin's head. You can summon remote bombs to use on enemies or to destroy certain obstacles. Cryonis lets you create a pillar of ice in the water to navigate across areas that are too awkward to swim in, or to reach higher ground. The less combat focused ones are the camera, amiibo, and with the DLC, the Master Cycle, which is quite literally a dirt bike. The amiibos were used to unlock different outfits and weapons in the game, which it is annoying to be honest, especially if you don't have any. But for sure, the biggest culprit of this was Epona. The only way to get her was with an amiibo. I really wish there was a trial or something in the game that you could have done that would have summoned her for Link within the context of the story. Breath of the Wild's impact on the games industry will be felt for years to come. We've seen its influence in games from Genshin Impact to Immortals Phoenix Rising, all the way to games like Ghost of Tsushima, Elden Ring, and Horizon Forbidden West. It helped launch the Switch and bring Nintendo back from a pretty tough few years. It spawned a really enjoyable spin-off game with Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity that gave us a nice bit of a what-if style fanservice, allowing us to actually participate in the war. We got a sequel with the fantastic Tears of the Kingdom that absolutely floored me when it was revealed. I was in a Discord call with my friend at the time and I was slightly losing my mind. And it does truly seem like we're saying farewell not only to the Switch itself, but also this iteration of Zelda 2. And as bittersweet as that is, I'm okay with it. Maybe it is time we get another more traditionally structured Zelda again, with traditional dungeons and exploration making a return. Maybe a new game more in line with how the likes of Elden Ring does its open world. You can freely go around these big explorable areas, but you still have to complete specific quests or need to obtain certain items to access different areas on the map for the first time. Something that can strike a good balance between the structure of the classics and the openness of Breath of the Wild. A full remake of Ocarina of Time would be pretty cool, and it would definitely make a lot of people happy. Wherever Zelda goes next, I think it's going to take a little bit of Breath of the Wild with it regardless. This has been a video I have wanted to make since the start, but I really just wanted to wait until I felt that I could do it justice, so I really hope I have. Let me know your thoughts down below. Did you enjoy the video? And do you have any personal memories of Breath of the Wild, or even the launch of the Nintendo Switch yourself? I'd love to know. Thanks so much for watching, everybody, and I'll see you next time.